I started as a management and strategy consultant years ago, graduating college in the mid 90s, and spent some time up in the Boston, Cambridge, Massachusetts area. The clients that we handled were usually large financial services organizations or large Fortune 500 companies. I then co-founded a software startup along with a former college roommate of mine. From that, I did more consulting work for a variety of different clients and also worked as an executive doing new business development throughout Latin America for a startup telecommunications and internet company. From there, I went on and worked across the World Trade Center for an investment bank that also had a software company and did new development of new kinds of products for that company and new initiatives. I've also done other things like I've owned a restaurant, I've worked in the nonprofit space, and done small business consulting as well. And eventually, through a series of opportunities, I was part of a founding team that started the first ever venture capital firm in El Paso, Texas. That went on to make investments from Austin to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And that also turned into advising on venture capital and advising startups on how to raise venture capital and advising family offices on how to do the same, as well as several governments and universities. And now I advise a prominent family on their venture capital investments. I also run an investment fund for the New Mexico State University. It's the Arrowhead Innovation Fund. And I am active in venture capital as well as teaching entrepreneurship. I got into venture capital when I first started working on a project as a consultant to help advise a nonprofit created specifically to help companies apply for venture capital for a very specific fund in Texas. It was the Texas Emerging Technology Fund that was started by the Texas government. I found that working with these companies that while the government was an important source of capital, it wasn't set up to essentially rigorously vet ideas and move at the speed at which these ideas needed. So through a number of introductions and opportunities, I was able to launch the first ever venture capital fund in El Paso, Texas back in 2009. So that was my start in venture capital. Joseph Advisory is different from a couple of perspectives. The first one is that it's very versatile. It's done work for governments, for nonprofits, for universities, for family offices, and for other organizations like that. And it's also paired up what it is to launch venture capital, raise venture capital, or deploy venture capital as it pertains to economic development. So it has a strength in that area. The other reason that Joseph Advisory is particularly different is we've advised not only on raising money and in deploying money into startups, but we've also done that with respect to deploying money into funds. So Joseph Advisory has advised on fund of funds investments and strategies therein. It's also done work overseas and advice of governments in other countries on how to do the same thing, and again, be focused on developing ecosystems and being resilient in that aspect. It's done this over the course of roughly 14 years, so it has a lot of experience in doing that. And we're very active. We're not just advising, but we actually oversee the investments that we make and serve on boards, as well as usher things through exit. The next 5, 10, and 20 years of Joseph Advisory and certainly my career are to really continue to invest in my community, and doing so also by incorporating executives, young executives that we can help indoctrinate and train in aspects of venture capital so that they in turn create their own path with respect to their careers in venture capital. And we're doing this by working with a number of young analysts that work in terms of evaluating deals, data analytics, financial modeling, and down the road we'll also take part in serving on boards, as well as more engaged in different aspects of the companies that we're investing in. Historically, you had to know somebody to get into venture capital, or somehow be in the right context of the right city, since venture capital was mostly focused in Silicon Valley or perhaps the East Coast. Now, venture capital is more broad. There's venture capital firms throughout the country. There's governments that have gotten engaged and universities as well. But the right way to get involved in venture capital is really to understand the investment landscape. Perhaps as an entrepreneur, perhaps as a young investor who's participated in crowdfunding and the like, and certainly have sufficient skill sets in marketing, some depth in some industry, some skills in financial analysis. It's still hard and difficult to get into venture capital. I think from a diversity perspective, there's a number of organizations trying to be helpful and engaging in doing that. What we're doing to get people involved in venture capital, if we started through Sandbox Ventures, which is a co-work and innovation community endeavor here in El Paso, Texas. And we started the FIRE Venture Capital Fellows. FIRE stands for Fourth Industrial Revolution Economy. So FIRE VC Fellows are college or MBA level students or master's students engaged in a year-long fellowship to understand and learn about venture capital. Now, I should say that it's not enough to just kind of know about venture capital. It does take a long time to develop the skill sets necessary. There's an old joke in the industry that says, how do you train a venture capitalist? $40 million in 5 years later, which means that the only way you're really gaining an appreciation for this is to understand and be in the game, quote unquote, in the game, investing and understanding what happens. Think of it as you can't learn to swim just by reading a book. You have to actually get into the pool and get wet and paddle around and understand the process from the inside. Investors, entrepreneurs, or other partners, when they think about Joseph Advisory Service, should think about it as a trusted partner that helps to research and understand and then design the implementation of venture capital programs. So if you're an investor and you're thinking, how do I go about this? It really starts with what are you trying to achieve and how can we bring data and knowledge to serve your purpose and your work. If you're an entrepreneur, you might want to engage and ask questions about what is the right stage to go out and raise venture capital? Is this the kind of company that you're normally seeing? Is this the right source of capital? If you're a university and you want to plan how to design more engagement for your alumni or your students, that's a skill set and a capability that we have and have implemented in the past. Generally speaking, Joseph Advisory advises on venture capital formation and deployment and how that bolsters an ecosystem. And in that ecosystem, there's very different players. The investors are one, universities, economic development entities, but at the center of all of that is the entrepreneur. Any sense of building an ecosystem has to depend on the entrepreneur. And entrepreneurs don't always have all of the answers they need, but usually entrepreneurs are very good about gathering data and information and then implementing their vision based on the information that they're gathering. So Joseph Advisory is a partner that offers some of those resources. We have a particular capability on implementation and on monitoring that implementation to make sure that there's a return on investment.